Recognizes Mr. Mills. And thank you for your service getting Haitian Americans out of Haiti.
Well, it's an honor to be able to do this, to be able to help Americans out of Haiti, as we did with the 255 that we got out of Israel, and as we did with the Americans out of Afghanistan. So there is a pattern of abandonment that has existed throughout this administration that I'm going to call attention to immediately. I want to thank the Gold Star families, who I consider to be friends at this point, and who we've had many long-standing conversations with. And I can tell you, Steve, that many of us will be looking to get all charges dropped, which never should have been levied against you to begin with, for a grieving father who lost both of his sons, who understandably would be upset when there's still been no accountability. Responsibility, people's taking a lot of responsibility. Oh, it's my fault, it's my fault, it's my fault. These same individuals are continuing to get promoted. These same individuals are continuing to serve. These are people who are allowed to serve after making critical errors that cost lives, but people who refuse because of religious and medical exemptions are being purged out of our military who are willing to serve. Think of the irony of this. Now, I do want to thank both of you for your service. I'm going to ask a series of rhetorical questions, but they're needed in an effort to try and base a context of my further questions. Mr. Milley, can you tell me exactly kind of what your description of your job was as chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff?
I mean, it's codified in law that chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is the senior military advisor. He's not in the chain of command, military advisor to the President, Secretary of Defense, and National Security Council, and by extension to Congress. And his job or her job, and it's to be the senior military advisor of a group of people called the Joint Chiefs of Staff. We are all the chiefs of the individual services. You represent the Joint Chiefs, and you represent their advice to the President and the Secretary of Defense. And if there's any dissenting advice, you give that as well.
But traditionally, your role is an advisory
It's an
role.
advisor. It's
and
an advisor
General
position.
McKenzie, your role as commander of CENTCOM is actual Ground Force Operation Command. Is that correct?
Joint Force Operation Command.
Joint
I'm in
Force
the chain of
Operation
command.
Command.
I'm responsible for
Which
everything.
means at the end of the
that
day,
doesn't
whatever happens on the ground, the buck stops with you, correct?
That's correct.
So I'd like to ask a question, because I understand the advisory role, and I think that General Milley's made it very clear the direction in which he had advised, and it was very different than what this administration has done, and I think that you have testified to the same. But I do have some issue with some of the things that was said. I think that when you look at the Secretary of Defense, he has made comments before this committee to say that there was no actionable or credible intelligence that was provided that could have led to the understanding of when the suicide bomber was going to do this. However, I think you've all read the day-to-day intelligence reports, as have I, in a classified setting, that would speak very much to the difference of that, even to the extent and the clarity of saying, moving into this location of this city, planning is commenced, planning is finished, execution is imminent. And these are the day-to-day data logs that we all saw, which will prove that there was credible intelligence that could have been rendered on that. Not to mention the fact that there was in the State Department, who I put a tremendous amount of responsibility on, and have requested multiple times for Anthony Blinken to go ahead and step down, the 23 descent cables, which warned early on what would occur in this. Now, my only real severe issue that I've had as of late, General McKenzie, is that you've made multiple comments in the media and otherwise to the extent that a brave hero, in my opinion, who has sacrificed his limbs for this country, Sergeant Tyler Vargas-Andrews, that his recollection of the events that took place on August 26, to quote you, sir, that he was not recalling this correctly. And secondly, you said that you claimed there was no bolo that would even meet the description. Now, this is the rhetorical part of this. Where were you on August 26, sir?
Tampa, Florida.
Well, I can tell you where Sergeant Vargas-Andrews was, and he was sitting at the gate. And I would trust on-ground information far more than someone who's sitting 9, 10, 11,000 miles away, who's potentially watching from ISR and potentially being briefed by the commanders on the ground, that his testimony, which has been corroborated, by the way, by multiple Marines who have testified before this committee, that the events that he has actually made common and made clear actually did take place. And we're fortunate enough, General McKenzie, that the gentleman who actually endured the most from this, who was on the ground, and ground truth matters, as we all know, is sitting right there. So would you like the opportunity to tell Sergeant Vargas right there that he is not recalling the incidents that occurred on August 26 correctly, that he and his fellow Marines are not actually the ones who said there was a bolo of this description, that he is incorrect in his assessment, which is putting into question his integrity? Do you want to face him and tell him that before him now?
I don't want to face him and tell him that. I want to say that the battlefield is a very complex place. There were a lot of threats that were flowing around out there that day. I honor his service. I regret he was injured.
Have you spoke to him since then?
I have not spoken to him
So
since
you
then.
obviously haven't honored him, nor has anyone else come to even question him about what took place, even after our committee a year ago.
I
So the
believe
bottom
that
line,
you are
sir, I'm
wrong.
still
I
talking.
believe he has been
Sir,
questioned.
General, the bottom line is that he deserved that respect like these Gold Star families deserve that respect. And to question his integrity, to question what took place on August 26th that he observed from his own eyes and sacrificed his limbs for, that you're unwilling to actually face him and actually tell him the same thing that you were willing to say to MSNBC and all the rest, which is that his recollection is incorrect and that there was no such thing,
Sedate that.
is shameful. With that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields. My understanding is the two generals have met with the families, that they are willing to meet with Sergeant Tyler Vargas-Andrews. And you deserve that, sir.
Yes, you do.
With that, Chair